Hello everyone. I'm Jams. Welcome to For Sleep channel. Today we meet again and listen to the story together. The Moonlit Vale. A gentle fairy tale in several parts. Part 1, Chapters 1 to 2. Chapter 1, A Soft Sunrise in Highvale. At the edge of a wide, rolling plain, there stood a small village named Highvale. It was known for its early morning mists that drifted gently through the valley, creating a pale golden haze whenever the sun began its daily ascent. People in Highvale rose before dawn, not out of any obligation or chore, but because they loved to greet the sunlight and watch as it slowly unveiled the green fields, the wild flowers, and the distant hills. Each sunrise was like a quiet promise of warmth and renewal. In one cozy cottage near the outskirts of Highvale lived a young woman named Evangeline. She was gentle in manner and voice, her every word filled with kindness. Each morning, she would wrap herself in a soft shawl and stand by her window, inhaling the fresh morning air. Beyond her garden fence, dew sparkled on the blades of grass, and the scent of wild lavender drifted in through the open window. On this particular morning, Evangeline felt an unusual stirring in her heart. She couldn't quite place it, an eagerness, perhaps, or a subtle tingle of anticipation. She brushed her hair carefully, made herself a cup of chamomile tea, and stepped outside to watch the sunrise in all its gentle glory. The sky was a palette of soft pinks, lilacs, and pale oranges that blended seamlessly into one another. Her garden, a labor of love she had tended for many years, glistened with dew. She ran her fingertips across the leaves of her rosemary bush and breathed in its soothing scent. A light breeze carried the sweet perfume of honeysuckle from the trellis by her door. It was a moment of serene beauty, and Evangeline smiled to herself, sensing that the day held some unspoken promise. Highvale, at this early hour, was just beginning to stir. She could see Mrs. Winslow, the neighbor who baked sweet bread each morning, stoking her oven fire. A gentle stream of smoke drifted from her chimney, and the faint aroma of yeast and sugar teased the senses. A little farther down the lane, Old Man Rowan was leading his two placid donkeys to graze by the meadow. Their soft braying punctuated the hush of dawn. Evangeline greeted them all with a nod or a wave. Though she was shy, she carried warmth in her heart that made people around her feel at ease. She felt grateful for the calm and unhurried life that Highvale offered, while other villages bustled with trade and urgent errands. Highvale's pace was steady and kind, as though everyone had silently agreed that life was more about gentle progress than constant hurry. Yet, as she lingered in her garden, that subtle tingle of anticipation grew more pronounced. She felt it in the back of her mind, like the faint glow of a distant lantern. Something was coming, something that might nudge her beyond the familiar edges of her routine. She closed her eyes for a moment and let the warmth of the sunrise wash over her. The breeze rustled the leaves of the willow tree by the creek. The hush felt like a whisper of encouragement, telling her that change, if it came, could be gentle and good. When she opened her eyes, Evangeline decided she would welcome the day with an open heart. If something new was on its way, she would face it as she did everything else, with kindness, curiosity, and a quiet confidence. She finished her tea, then went inside to tidy her small cottage. Her home was modest, just a single-story building with a thatched roof, but it was filled with her personal touches. Bundles of dried herbs hung from the beams. Crocheted blankets draped over chairs. And shelves held her favorite books on plants, nature, and tales of far-off lands. As she worked, she hummed a lullaby her mother had once sung to her. Something soft and lilting. The morning light now shone through the windows, dancing across the wooden floor. A sweet calmness filled the air. It was as though the day itself was in no rush, allowing each moment to stretch and breathe. By the time she finished sweeping, she noticed that the tingle within her heart had grown softer but was still present, like a gentle nudge that refused to be ignored. She placed the broom aside and glanced out the window again. There, on the small path leading to her cottage, stood a stranger, cloaked in a travel-worn cape. The stranger held a small satchel. He seemed hesitant, as if unsure whether to knock on her door or continue on. Evangeline's curiosity sparked. Highvale rarely saw strangers, especially not this early in the day. Leaving her chores behind, she went to the door and stepped out onto her little porch. The stranger looked up at her, and for a moment, his tired eyes softened in relief. He lifted a hand in a timid wave, and she smiled gently. "Good morning," she greeted, her voice kind but cautious. "Can I help you?" The stranger, who appeared to be in his early 20s, nodded. "I apologize for disturbing you," he said quietly, "but I've traveled all night, and your cottage was the first sign of warmth I've seen. My name is Jonas. I wonder if you could spare a bit of water or perhaps some tea. I'm afraid I'm quite weary." Evangeline immediately invited him inside. The old floorboards creaked softly under their feet as she guided him to a chair near the hearth. She busied herself preparing a pot of soothing chamomile tea, adding a hint of honey for sweetness. As she worked, Jonas looked around, taking in the dried herbs and the neatly arranged kitchen utensils. "Thank you," he said at length. "I'm a traveling minstrel. Or at least I hope to be. I've been wandering from town to town. But I heard whispers that there's a special place beyond the hills, a place where the moonlight shines brighter than anywhere else. And people's dreams take on a life of their own." Evangeline set a steaming mug of tea before him, her eyes shining with interest. "You must mean the moonlit vale," she replied softly. "I've heard tales of it from my grandmother. They say it's a valley hidden deep in the mountains, where the moon's glow is so brilliant it can reveal truths hidden in the heart." Jonas nodded eagerly. "That's the one. I've been following vague directions and rumors for weeks now. I'm sure I must be close, but I'm not quite certain how to find it. Some say you can only reach it if your heart is open and you're meant to see it." At this, Evangeline felt that tingle of anticipation again. She knew little about the moonlit vale, only that it was the subject of old stories and lullabies. She had never given much thought to actually searching for it. Yet the mention of it now stirred her imagination. Perhaps it was the reason she had felt so restless that morning. "I wish I knew how to guide you," she said gently, "but I only know the legends. Still, if you're in need of rest, you're welcome to stay here for a while. Highvale is a peaceful place, and I'm sure you'll find it comfortable enough to regain your strength." Jonas offered a grateful smile, sipping the tea that warmed him from the inside out. Outside, the morning sun had fully risen, bathing the little cottage in a soft, radiant light. Evangeline felt a subtle shift in the air, as if fate itself had just entered her home and made itself comfortable by the hearth. She did not realize it yet, but this was the beginning of a gentle journey that would lead her beyond Highvale's familiar fields. The path she would walk, guided by curiosity and kindness, would unveil not only the secrets of the moonlit vale but also the depths of her own heart. And for now, she was content simply to show hospitality to a weary traveler, unaware of how closely her destiny was intertwined with his. Chapter 2: Whispers of the Past. After sharing a simple breakfast of fresh bread and honey, Evangeline encouraged Jonas to rest in the spare room, which was hardly more than a small alcove with a wooden bed and a patchwork quilt. The young minstrel's exhaustion was evident in his heavy eyes. He murmured thanks before falling into a deep, untroubled sleep, lulled by the gentle hush of the cottage. While Jonas slept, Evangeline stepped outside to tend her garden. She had a habit of talking to her plants, though she would have been shy to admit it to anyone but her closest friends. She believed each living thing responded to warmth and attention. As she moved among the neat rows of herbs and flowers, her soft humming filled the morning air. She couldn't stop thinking about the moonlit vale. Her grandmother had often told her stories of a hidden valley that lay in the northern mountains, a place where moonbeams fell so thickly they seemed to form a silver mist across the ground. According to legend, travelers who entered the vale under the full moon would see visions of their deepest hopes, fears, and desires. Some found it enchanting, others found it unsettling, but all who returned spoke of its profound beauty and mystery. Evangeline remembered one story in particular, the tale of Celine, a young maiden who had journeyed to the moonlit vale to cure her ailing mother. It was said that Celine's devotion lit a lantern in her heart, guiding her through forests and over rocky crags until she reached the valley. There, under the silvery moonlight, she found a rare flower whose petals glowed with healing magic. The story ended happily, with Celine returning home just in time to save her mother's life. Ever since childhood, Evangeline had thought of that story as a comforting bedtime tale, never suspecting the moonlit vale might be a real place. But Jonas believed it was real, enough to wander from town to town in search of it. Evangeline found herself wondering what he hoped to find there. Was it merely a minstrel's curiosity? Or did he seek something deeper? She tried to push these questions aside, focusing on the tasks at hand. The sun climbed higher in the sky, its warmth coaxing the flowers to open wide. By midday, Jonas awoke. Evangeline was sitting on her porch, stringing dried lavender into small bundles. She looked up as he approached, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "How did you sleep?" she asked, kindly, offering him a seat on the wooden bench beside her. "Like a stone?" he replied with a half-smile. "I can't remember the last time I slept in a bed that comfortable." He glanced at the bundles of lavender, inhaling their sweet, soothing scent. "Thank you for your hospitality. I feel like I should repay you somehow." She shook her head. "You're my guest. Besides, Highvale folk have a tradition of welcoming travelers with open arms. We believe that kindness extended is kindness returned." Jonas looked at her with quiet admiration. He sat for a moment, letting the calm of the day settle around him. Eventually, he spoke. "I know it might sound strange, but I feel like my journey has led me here for a reason. Not just to rest, but maybe to learn something. I can't quite put it into words. Evangeline offered him a warm smile. I understand. Sometimes life guides us in ways we don't fully grasp until later. She paused. Then added, I was thinking about the moonlit veil. I only know the stories my grandmother told me. She used to mention a hidden path through the mountains, guarded by an ancient oak tree that stands by a waterfall. But I've never traveled that far myself. A spark lit in Jonas's eyes. A hidden path and an oak tree by a waterfall. He repeated, as if memorizing each word. That's more than I had before. Maybe if I can find someone who knows the mountains well, they can help me locate that oak tree. Evangeline nodded, her mind already turning. Marisol, an old friend of my family, lives near the foot of the mountains. She's a herbalist and has wandered those trails for many years. She might know more. The two of them exchanged a look, a shared sense of excitement fluttering between them. Though Jonas was the one on a quest, Evangeline couldn't deny the small tug at her own heart. She wanted to see if the stories were true. Perhaps she would never have ventured beyond Highvale on her own. But Jonas's arrival felt like a sign. I could take you there, she said quietly, almost surprising herself with her own words. If you'd like the company. That is. It's a few days' journey to Marisol's cottage. But I know the roads. Jonas's face brightened. And he nodded. I'd be grateful for your guidance. Traveling alone can be lonely. And two sets of eyes are better than one for finding hidden paths. And so, the seed of a new plan was planted. They would set off the next morning, heading north along the winding roads that led toward the mountains. Evangeline felt a gentle thrill in her chest. A mixture of nervousness and anticipation. She had never undertaken such a journey before. But something told her that she was meant to take this step. That afternoon, they prepared provisions for the trip. Jonas insisted on helping. And under Evangeline's patient guidance, he learned to bake simple travel biscuits with oats and honey. She also packed small pouches of herbs that could be steeped into tea for energy or comfort. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a warm glow over Highvale, the two sat down to a modest supper of vegetable stew and fresh bread. When night fell, Evangeline showed Jonas the small attic where he could sleep, as she would keep the spare room for storing supplies for the journey. A single window in the attic revealed a clear sky sprinkled with stars. Jonas stood there for a moment, gazing out into the silent beauty of the night. I wonder, he said softly, what the moonlight will look like in that valley, if we're fortunate enough to find it. Evangeline, who stood behind him, felt her heart stir again. I suppose we'll find out, she whispered. Together. They bid each other good night. Evangeline went to her own bed. But sleep did not come easily. Thoughts of the upcoming journey swirled in her mind. She imagined towering mountains, hidden waterfalls, and an ancient oak with twisting branches that reached for the sky. She pictured the moonlit veil shimmering with silver light. The very idea both soothed and excited her. Eventually, she drifted off, lulled by the distant sound of crickets and the soft rustle of the wind through the trees. In her dreams, she stood in a meadow beneath a glowing moon, her reflection shining in a pool of still water. A gentle voice echoed around her, saying, Kindness and courage shall guide you. Follow the path of your heart. When morning arrived, Evangeline rose with a sense of calm determination. She donned a simple travel dress and a sturdy pair of boots. Jonas was already awake, carefully tuning a small lute he carried in his satchel. Together, they shared a quick breakfast, then stepped out into the early light of dawn. Highvale seemed to watch them fondly as they passed through its humble streets. Mrs. Winslow waved from her bakery, and Old Man Rowan tipped his hat. A few curious children trailed after them for a short while, giggling and whispering about the stranger with the lute and the kind lady, who was brave enough to leave the village. The road north stretched before them, bordered by wildflowers and tall grass that swayed in the breeze. The sky was a soft blue, tinged with the pale gold of the rising sun. Evangeline looked over at Jonas, who returned her gaze with a grateful nod. Neither spoke, but both felt a gentle excitement thrumming through the morning air. With each step they took away from Highvale, the world seemed to open up. Hills rose and fell like gentle waves on an endless green ocean, and the mountains loomed in the distance, their peaks brushed with wisps of white cloud. A sense of quiet companionship settled between the two travelers, as though they had known each other longer than just a single day. And so began their journey, a journey born from curiosity and guided by hope. Though neither could predict the trials and wonders they would encounter, they walked forward with open hearts, ready to discover not only the moonlit vale, but also the quiet truths that lay within themselves. The first stage of their adventure had begun, and the hush of the road invited them onward, promising that whatever they found would be woven with gentle magic and a warmth that only the kindest of hearts could truly perceive.